Welcome to Your Story is Your Strength podcast, a podcast about how your story, our journey through your life and its events and activities is your strength. Thank you for joining us today for episode 11. The mission is to educate and advocate. I'm Sarah Locke, your host, and I'm joined today by Julie Stamm. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2007. She quickly became a person on a mission to educate, advocate, and support others battling chronic illness. She's a mom, an author, and an MS warrior. Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, Sarah, I'm so excited. We finally get to meet, and thank you for having me.
Oh, I've recently seen that you're helping develop and push out a new mobile app that informs and educates those with MS about a variety of things. You were actually on a local news station, I think, and you've been posting more and more real life videos of what it's like to be a person not only living with, but struggling with MS on the daily.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted just watching it.
I'm exhausted doing it, but it actually motivates me. So,
Well,
um,
and I know how hard it can be because you're
yeah.
pushing through fatigue, your body's unwillingness to participate most days. And
hmm
I'd love to hear, what your experience is.
Oh, it's a challenge. So the app I'm really passionate about because it makes it easier. Like there's so many incredible resources out there. And it's hard to find bite-sized snippets. And I can't read every article. I need someone to give me clip notes. So it kind of, they're really big in the cerebral palsy space. The founder has two children with cerebral palsy, and she's created this bite size. It's kind of like Instagram, but specific for the disease. So now she's moving on to MS, and I'm helping lead that on, spread the word. We're trying to get 1,000 people to sign up so that they can actually get the funders to launch it because it's a small tech startup. But I'm really passionate about it because it makes it easy and it highlights other people's work. So for example, when this podcast comes out, we're going to highlight that and push that on their side also, which I mean is super exciting because I think that's it. We just don't know where to find the information. So it's going to give little snippets of, hey, this is what's going on this week, and this is a cool thing that you should check out. And as for finding the energy and stuff, I think it comes down to remembering the beginning, and we didn't have this. I didn't even have a computer at home. It was, I was living in London. It was totally different time. There were 3 drugs available, none of which were for progression. So I kept progressing. So I think my hope is to just give people some comfort in knowing that, yeah, like days can be hard, but you're going to get through it. And everything, even down to being a mom. I was told I shouldn't have children. I couldn't have children. I'm a mom, and he is the best thing that ever happened to me. If I had 1 minute with him, it would be worth every day of my life. So I guess don't listen to what people predict, because they said I wasn't going to walk in 10 years, and I'm 17 years in and I'm still walking. So no one knows.
I love that. I remember telling my mom when I was diagnosed that I was going to walk. It's fine. I wasn't going to, lose my legs. Even though I couldn't feel from my chest down. I was like,
Right.
things are changing. It's new era that we're in, so being transparent, I think, gives me the strength because I want everyone to know what it is like. And I think somebody called it a disservice once that I make it look so good. But also I feel that makes me want to share more about what I am experiencing. And being transparent, as you know, makes us vulnerable. But that's what making our story and telling our story, it gives us power, right?
Yeah.
And it shows the sheer strength to deliver a message that's often it goes unheard. There are a ton of people out there that have multiple sclerosis that aren't really sharing.
Yeah.
That's like when I, saw your app and you were like, help me spread the word. I was like, oh my
Thank
goodness, I'm
you.
going to socialize this. And a ton of people that I know have MS but aren't really out about having MS now have an avenue, right? If they sign
Yeah.
up and they get this, they can actually see. And I was like, oh, this is so amazing. Julie, I want to take the time to hear about your story. You were diagnosed much younger than I was. I think I was 39. And I just want to hear like how it was because like you stated before, there's not a lot of drugs that were out during that time. And I was grateful enough to immediately be put on an aggressive path of a disease modifying treatment and sort of halt mine, which I have relapsing remit, which you can share the one you have, but
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people actually know that there are several different kinds of multiple sclerosis.
Yeah, and I think they're still identifying new kinds because you can't fit specifically into one bracket all the time. So I have progressive, I've never had a remission. So from onset, it's been like, oh, you have this symptom, and then we're just going to keep building on those symptoms. And I like to explain it like, here's what when you get your driver's license, you look at the picture and you're like, all right, that's not great. And then you get another one and you look back and you're like, oh, I wish I had that. That's how it is for me. I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could go back to being 27. I was diagnosed at 27, um, and have that body, because each year it's just gotten worse, and like you adapt. And I was explaining the other day that when we moved in this house, walking up the stairs didn't really feel like an issue. And now I'm like, how did we buy a house with stairs? This was so dumb, Um, but it's just constant evolving and adapting. And I can't say that I'm happy about any of that. And I am hopeful. And I feel like I wish I got on a better drug earlier, but now there are drugs that work for my form. I have progressive. So now there are drugs that actually can slow it down, which is promising. And I do maybe naively believe that there is going to be a cure in our lifetime. I really do.
You're not
Um,
naive. I'm
yeah,
right there with you.
right. I just went to a big conference, the annual neurology conference. There wasn't really much on MS. And I'm like, maybe because they know that they're figuring this out real quick. Like they're moving on to other stuff. Um, so I'm very hopeful. And yeah, I can see the things changing in my body, and it's sad, and I give myself a moment of grief, but I move forward. And I think being authentic of that whole tale, because it is a story you're watching, and it wouldn't be fair to, I mean, I don't even have a big following, but like I can see that the people that view my profile are a lot greater than the amount of followers I have. But those people that are viewing it, I hope they see like I can still do great things, but God, it's not easy, that's for sure.
Well, and when even I'm looking at your profile, when I started following you, I was like, this is a person that, they are authentic. They are sharing their true story. And like you said, you look back and you wish you were there. I even find myself doing that. And those of us with, RRMS or remitting relapsing, we find our new normal and we can move forward. You don't have a new normal. And I can't even fathom how frustrating that would be, because there is days that I'll wake up and I'm like, I just don't feel it, but I know tomorrow I will feel
Right.
it.
And you know what?
And
I was talking to another progressive patient, and I actually think it's worse that because you can't plan. At least like on my end, I know it's just going to be garbage.
yeah,
Uh, but like I'm used to my level of garbage, and but the thought of, and then just the sadness of having a good day and then losing it again. So I feel like you have to relive that and have that grief repetitively, which is really hard. I
okay,
never
I do.
yeah,
Okay, I see it. I've definitely, and it's great talking to you because it does give us that perspective, I guess, and gives me that perspective, because I always say, it'll be better tomorrow, or I'll try again tonight, like when I'm not
yeah,
sleeping, right? We'll just give it a go again. But I do find myself after 5, 6, 7 nights of not sleeping, okay, I'm done.
yeah,
Right? Like, when is it going to snap back? And my gosh, I hope it does snap back. Like, what if this is because
yeah.
relapsing can lead to progression as well. So every day, I'm dreading that I'm going to actually not get things back. When I do relapse, it's a quick bout of steroids for 3 to 5
Yeah.
days, and then I'm back. A month later, but I'm back. Where, you don't get that sort of reprieve.
Mhm.
That we get. So that's an interesting take on it, that I have to relive my horror every time that
I
it's like,
know, and I think that's hard because you can't really plan for it. I don't
it's a
know.
yo-yo. And
It
that's,
is.
I keep explaining to my friends, like, keep inviting me. I'm sorry it's no today, but it could be
Yeah.
yes next time. I don't know
Right.
what my energy level is going to be like, or I don't know if I can go out in public. And a lot of it, and I gotta say, the pandemic had a lot to do with it, is anxiety. I
Yes.
never felt anxiety before one MS. I was wearing a mask before it was cool, right? Because before COVID.
Yeah.
But then COVID quickly came in right after my diagnosis, and it was sort of like we went on lockdown because
Well,
I just took this treatment that shuts off my immune system. What does that mean? And then I got really anxious about being out in the world and being around people, and then having people be like, even now, it's no big deal. It's like the cold.
not for
Caught it
you.
in December. It wasn't a cold,
Yeah.
right? And it brings back all of those symptoms that you originally had. Like, I couldn't walk to the
Yeah.
bathroom for 4 days. I had to have someone help me.
Yeah.
And it makes you an invalid. And you're just like, I am stronger than this, but you're not. Your body's not there to respond to the mental power. Or,
Right.
when you're stressed out, you have a stressful day and you can't find the words.
Ugh,
That those are the worst days, especially like in my job, in my work. And
yeah.
I'm like making up words, hoping they're okay.
Yeah. Say it with confidence. No one will question it. It's fine.
Right. I always say talk like it's a real word and they're
Yeah.
good. But I understand you wrote a book after your son was born, and you
Mhm.
focus, rightfully so, shifting that focus on supporting the children of parents with chronic illness. I'd love to learn.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I decided from when I found out I was pregnant, which I didn't think I could get pregnant. And I was told I shouldn't have kids. So anyone out there that wants to have kids, do it. Like, don't worry about it. Don't, yeah, there are gonna be really, really, really hard days. And even after the pregnancy, I overdid it on steroids. I have cataracts at 45 years old, like, but it's all worth it. I wouldn't trade a moment of it. So if it's something that you saw in your cards before MS, it's still in your cards. Don't take this disease can't take away that. Um, and it could take away so much, but that's one thing you shouldn't let it take away. But so I looked to the societies for things that kids could use as resources because I wanted to talk to my nieces about it and I wanted to figure out how to have the conversation. And they were all like demyelination and talking about relapses, and I don't have relapsing. So it was like I needed to come up with something that was more towards the younger age bracket, and I wanted it from his perspective. So from when he was young, I wrote him letters and I started talking to him about them. And so these were all every page in that book, I cried myself to sleep thinking I failed as a
Oh,
mom. So I think when people read it knowing that, then they can feel the pain because, train day was a terrible day for me. That was a day my legs didn't work and I let him down because we couldn't go do whatever we run around the park. But when I talked to him, he was like, oh, that was train day, not my legs failing. It was a day that we just reinvented fun. And that's the whole book is about reinventing. Look, especially with COVID, we're all going to have different obstacles and different ways of like enjoying life. But what matters is we know that we're going to get through it, we're going to adapt, and that love is never in short supply. And that's pretty much the theme of the book.
that is all. And I now want to run out and go get it. And
Go
by
to the
run,
library. It helps. Like, you don't even have to buy it. Go to the
right?
library and it helps spread the word to multiple families. So check
Yeah,
it
well,
out.
and I one of my biggest things was how do I share it with my daughter, right? How do I tell her that mommy's not going to be everything? And my journey actually started way ahead of this when I was lucky enough to get pregnant, and then she was a high risk pregnancy. I did not carry her to term. She was born and she fit in the palm of my hand. And we were up at, the Dartmouth NICU for 7 weeks, down in Concord Hospital for a few more weeks after that. And it was sort of like I was blessed. So I was going to lose all this weight and I was going to do whatever this kid wanted me to do. And I lost over 100 pounds. I used to be much bigger. And I was like, I became healthy. And I started running. All these medals behind me are from Spartan races. And I used
Amazing.
to run obstacle course races. And I was just like, awesome. And one day I overheated in Texas on a business trip. And I came home and I couldn't feel from my chest down. And I remember telling one of my close friends or confiding in her saying, why? Why did I do all of this for my kid to only have it taken away? And she said, because this is going to make you a better person. This is going to make you stronger. She's like, you're going to stand on a damn soapbox every damn day and you're going to tell people about MS. But
Yeah.
she's like, and it's not going to limit you in the way that you think it's going to limit. And the day I came home from my first MRI, my PCP called me and I wasn't off the phone, like I wasn't in the door. And she phones and she says, Sarah, you've got demyelinization at your T2. And cool, what does that mean, right? And it's sort of like, well, that's why you can't feel from your chest down, and you're numb. You have multiple sclerosis. And I started crying. And I had just picked up my daughter and she's sitting there. And when I cry, kids cry, right? They just don't know
Yeah.
what's going
Always.
on.
Yeah.
And she ran upstairs and I remember, closing down, like, "Oop, she comes first." And I said, okay, I'll follow up. And I hung up and I went up and I said, baby, why are you crying? And she's sobbing. And she's like, because you're crying. And I said, but can I tell you why I'm crying? And she said, yes. And I'm still sobbing. And I was like, because mommy just learned that I have multiple sclerosis. And she goes, what is that? And I said, I'm crying because I don't know. I said, I don't know. And I said, knowledge is power. So will you learn with me what this
That's
is?
awesome.
And she goes, yes. And we're all like, okay, right?
Yeah.
And we went to the neurologist and I got all of the pamphlets and all of, and she was, oh, 6, 7, and she knew how to read. She's a great reader. And I gave her all the pamphlets and I said, help me pick out a drug. I'm going to go on a drug. I'm not going to let nature do any courses with me. I want to
Yeah.
stop it, prevent it, do what I can. She gets done reading them. She goes, Mom, they're all horrible. Side effects are real bad. Said, okay, okay, cool. And she helped me pick Ocrevus,
Yeah.
which she said, this is one
Good
sounds like
choice.
the best, the one that's right out. And so I started on Ocrevus, but she felt empowered because I gave her that knowledge, that power to help with the
Yeah.
decision making and the choices. And it's been like that the whole time. She's now 15, and
That's
I'm sort of
amazing.
like, one, she's like 6 foot tall. So I look up to her and she helps and she knows now. And we've had that open communication that you're 15. And I know when I ask you to do stuff that you're going to be 15 about it.
Yeah.
But when I'm asking you for help, can you remember that mom has MS and I don't like asking for help? So when I do, so those conversations have to
So
happen.
great. Yeah.
And she now knows, like when I'm looking at her saying, you're gonna do the leaves with me, I'm not asking, right? I'm
Yeah.
telling you that I need your help to do the leaves. I need your help to do the laundry.
Yeah. That's
And just
awesome.
it was an open conversation at the age of 6, right? That
Yeah.
you have to open that and have that communication. And it was a learning what mom's capable of doing going forward.
And I think the way you delivered it is absolutely perfect because you could have been like, I'm really sad because I got this diagnosis and I'm, terrified. Or like, I'm not really sure. Let's like figure it out. It's gonna be fine,
Right.
very
Well,
different. And I think that even happens like when you meet new people, the way you deliver it
yes, I think the mom
counts.
brain too kicks in that you want to protect
Uh-huh.
them and their feelings.
Yeah.
And I think that's what came first, in my mind.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, well, tell her to check it out at the library. Or I could send you an electronic copy. Well,
Yeah,
she's
she'll
she's
love it.
too big. She's probably like, I don't want to read this kid's book. She might like
Yeah, but she will
it.
if I tell her. This is about MS. She helps, she volunteers. We have a car wash coming up in a few weeks to raise money for my Climb the Peak for MS event. And our goal is $20,000 this year. Last year we raised 16,000.
That's
And it's like,
insane.
what's 20? And well, when you're sitting at 8, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So the car wash will help. But she's like, can I volunteer? And I'm like, absolutely. And she goes that day, and I am affiliated with a Jeep club because I drive a Jeep. And she's like, can I duck the Jeeps? Because I have branded
Yeah.
little Climb the Peak ducks. I was like, absolutely, because we duck and be kind sort of message.
Yeah.
Um, but I
Oh,
was,
that's awesome.
yeah, so she's involved with it. And I think that that helps as well, in her understanding or her explaining it. And I remember one day she ran home and she goes, Mom, Gretchen's mom has MS.
Oh,
Right?
that's awesome. Well,
So
not
she met
awesome
a
for
girl at
Gretchen, but yeah,
school
yeah.
that has her mom has MS. And so I met her mom, and like now I have somebody local in town that I could
Yeah.
sort of lean on. And her story's amazing where, she used to need aids to walk, and now she's walking and jogging and doing her stuff. And it's sort of like how MS does this, you
Yeah.
know? And it's like if it takes your legs, it doesn't mean it takes your legs forever. If it takes your eyesight, it actually doesn't mean it takes your eyesight forever. And I mean, that is just the weirdest thing on how our
So
body can
weird.
heal.
Hmm.
And, I always say sclerosis means scars. So it
Yeah.
actually ends up scarring over. But if our body gives it time to scar over, is also right progression. You don't
Yeah.
get that opportunity.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, I even like whenever I'm having a really hard time, steroids help. They're a nice little tool. I mean,
yeah,
we have resources now that weren't available all the time. So,
absolutely.
and
The
even like Ocrevus and Briumvi and Rituxan and all those drugs are just consent, can, I'm gonna not pronounce it correctly, but Kesimpta,
yes.
all of them, they're just promising drugs. Like we didn't, I don't know. I feel like if someone's diagnosed today, yes, be sad, do all that, but you have the tools now. You can
Yes.
stabilize.
Well, and even like with your new app coming out, with all of the things that are happening, right? There's education out there. There's a place to find it. The National MS Society does a fabulous
Amazing.
job. They're redoing their website. It's live tomorrow. I just got the
I
inside
heard.
trader information. I might be featured on it. Just check it out.
Good.
But I also saw that you co-created 52 essential inclusion skills, an
I
A to
did.
Z guide to kindness, compassion, and respect for diverse abilities.
Yeah, I am very excited about that. I created that with Dr. Jenny Wu, who is this Harvard educated, brilliant superstar that I am not qualified to work with, but she took me on. And yeah, I had written A to Z book to just talk about words that are difficult for kids to understand. Not really understand, but like they're scared to talk about, like hospital, disabled, all those things, emergency thing, just to start conversation. So we define the term and then we have conversation starters that the kids can talk about. And on each card, there's a QR code that highlights a different ability.
Awesome.
So it's not only MS, it's everything. It's pediatric cancer, it's PTSD from school shootings, it's everything. Like we have only 52, but on the website, there's a lot more. And the website's a free resource that anyone can use. And I play with my son's friends and, we were talking about multiple sclerosis and then they all start talking about what they have. I have allergies. I have asthma. I have epilepsy. Like there's superpowers. And that's the important part is starting the conversation. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. And to treat everyone with kindness, regardless, because 1 in 4 of us in the United States has something going on. So you don't know if it's depression, if it's anxiety, what MS, there could be a million things. So I think my goal is for kids to start looking out and being inclusive. Even when my son's school is brand new and I can't believe that the playground is not as inclusive as it could be. It's 2024. It's time to you think about the children in the wheelchairs, you think about autistic children, you think about, anything that's super loud and, you have to have all these things in mind, but the kids think about it now. So I know after I play with my son's friends, they're like, wait, we just went on vacation with 5 other families. And they were on the beach and they were like, well, how do people in wheelchairs get down? I was like, well, that's a real issue. And what could we do to, make that a thing? And then they're not programmed like us. Like we're everything's so on autopilot. The kids aren't
Yes.
programmed yet. So now like their brains, they work and they're like coming up with these creative, thoughtful ideas. So that's my goal is to just have the conversations. Like, I did a school reading and the little girl, probably 13 or 14, I would guess. She was like, so when am I going to get it after I read my book about MS? And I was like, oh, sweetheart, what do you mean? Because
Oh
her
my
mom has MS and never talks
God.
about it. So for
Right.
all these years, she had that weight that it's just going to get her one day.
Mm.
And that's not that it took one reading to take that and make her cry to get that weight of stress that she's been carrying. So I think the conversations just need to start.
That is awesome, and that these can be the trigger to start that
Right.
conversation. I
Yeah,
mean, I
that's my goal.
remember we talk about equity all the time now, right? Because it isn't equality, it's
Yeah,
equity. How do we build that fence so everybody can see over it,
right.
right? And I remember having these conversations in the workplace now because it's sort of like everybody needs to know these inclusion conversations, the words to use, how to be kind, how to be, compassionate, and then also respect people for their limitations. I was on a talk once and we were talking about invisible illnesses and disabilities, and oh, what was it? Dyslexia came up. And I was like, oh my goodness, you don't even realize that that is actually an invisible
Yeah,
disability, that there's people out there that actually can't read their emails. And now that
yeah,
AI has come out and there's other tools that can read it for you. And I do social media marketing, and it's sort of like you can't use emojis as readily as, like, it might be a rocket ship to me, but if I'm blind or visually impaired and it's reading it, a rocket ship,
yeah. It doesn't
it
have the
reads it
same. Yeah,
rocket ship, and you're like, "What does that mean?" in the middle of that post.
right,
So it really puts in, upward chart slant. It
right,
doesn't mean productivity. It's an
right.
upward chart slant. So there needs to be like a whole key of how to use emojis now. And it blows my mind the way we talk and the way, we're trying to be more inclusive and, kind, but just having kids being able to explore because we are using these right words and we are enabling the conversation to happen, and
Yeah,
it's not something that's secret or horrible. I have a lot of people, they'll private message me and say, hey, you talk about your MS all the time. How did you get to that point? And I sort of say, I never had a point that I wasn't going to share. Like, even with
yeah,
my employer, the second person I told was my boss because
right.
I'm going to take naps at 2 o'clock in the afternoon now.
Yeah, good. And I think that's great. But a lot of people are nervous to tell other people.
Because
Even
there's
when I met my
anxiety.
husband, I was like, I have MS. I have to use catheters, just so you know. And just,
Mhm.
hey,
Yeah.
no big deal. It's not going to impact you. And he was not phased. at all. And if he was, then he's not the guy to hang out with,
Right.
or like the person to have in my life. That's anyone that's phased or feels like my disease is a burden to them isn't meant to be in my life.
So well said and put, because it's really building up your network of people that want to support, and even if they don't understand, they respect, right?
Right.
I have a lot of friends that, we've just had to walk away from each other and agree to disagree, or I'm not going to be there for those hikes, those climbs, those things I used to do. I'm now into nice strolls through the
Yeah.
woods.
Yeah.
Remove the mountain once in a while, and like the climb the peak, I will actually climb that mountain probably 3 times that day, and then I won't move for 3 weeks
Right.
because I know what it's gonna do, and that's like the spoon theory. We all, with those of us with
Oh
a
my
chronic
gosh, I have them
illness.
on my desk.
Yeah, right, we talk about how many
I
spoons.
literally have them on my
That is a
desk.
great visual.
I know my girlfriend made them for me because when I'm having a particularly bad day, I just put one spoon in here so my husband knows today's not the day. And I don't
Right.
have to say anything.
That is a great visual too, to know that I'm spent, I'm done.
Yeah.
My partner will come home from work and it's a gorgeous day out, and she's like, "Do you wanna go for a walk?" I do. But I don't, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm just, mentally, I'm spun from work, and mental brings me down physically, even though I don't want it to. And I've had those days that I've pushed through and then I didn't sleep right, or I didn't,
Hmm.
and it's everything needs to be just right now. And I don't know what that just right is
Right.
because my body doesn't tell me, it doesn't communicate
Yeah.
very well. So I do, we all struggle. And, I thank you for coming on this podcast. It is a very new podcast. I've recently just started having guests, and I love
I'm
having.
so excited. I will introduce you to all of the MS tribe. They would love, I mean,
Uh,
any
well,
way to get more resources out there is
yes,
amazing.
and
So,
it's
and
sharing our story, and it's sort of my audience is different than your audience is different than their audience, and it's just
right.
to be able to spread that word. So, Julie, your story and all that you've done to advocate and build awareness of not only MS, but other chronic illnesses. So so impressive, right? I've
Thanks.
enjoyed our conversation today, but all of our engagements that we've had. And I thank you for spending the time with me and sharing your story. And it's most definitely a strength, right? It doesn't bring us down, it builds us up. I always try to say, um, it happened for a reason, and I'm actually healthier and more aware of my body than I ever would have been without MS.
Yeah. And
And
I agree. I mean, I don't think that I'm healthier, but I do think I am definitely where I'm supposed to be. And I'm more proud of what I'm doing with MS than what I would be doing without it. So
and let me
I'm
clarify,
happy.
healthier is in eating and fitness.
Oh, okay.
So
I was like, this body is
right,
demyelinating.
my body is doing what it wants to do, but because of that, I need to eat a little healthier. I need to be able to say that isn't weight pain, that isn't knee pain because of, that's MS.
Right.
Or right, so there's a lot of things that I'm now doing physical therapy because I have other aches and ailments that I know might not be MS. I have carpal tunnel, not
Yeah.
MS. So
Yeah.
it's sort of, there's a fine line now. I'm over 40. That means a lot of things, not MS.
Hmm.
But let's keep spreading the orange because a cure, I strongly believe, is on the line. We are there with the level of research, even the stuff that came out of the pandemic and the research done to find a vaccine actually
Hmm.
helped us excel our MS research. So it's right there. I once was asked, "What are you going to do when they find a cure?" Ah, imagine saying,
I
"I once
know.
had MS."
I know. I think that about that a lot. Like my son's baby box, there's all like articles and things that I want him to look at when he grows up.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, well, it doesn't matter anymore. Like it doesn't exist. You know?
Yes. Like it
All
once
these things
did.
that were fight, yeah, it once did, but I hope I go by thinking that it's gonna be here. And I think they're gonna come up with something that remyelinates. It's just we have to sit tight and wait. So
And until then, be loud and proud that we have
yes,
MS and spread the
exactly.
orange. But until next
Absolutely.
time, everyone, own your story, tell it well, and share it often.